Welcome back to Things You Don't Know. Today we're talking about something that every person does, but not everybody thinks about in a historic sense: sleep.
Most specifically, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at the history of beds and sleeping habits. Straw mats, rope beds, four-poster beds, shared sleeping spaces, bunk beds, water beds, and the old idea of sleeping in more than one shift.
And the main point is that modern sleep is unusual. Today, many people think that normal sleep means a private bedroom, a soft mattress, electric lights turned off, and one long block of rest. But for much of history, sleep was more crowded, more interrupted, less comfortable, and much more connected to work, class, weather, danger, and light.
Yes, sir. You are so right, Chandler. Beds are not just furniture, they show us how people lived, what they feared and what they could afford, and how technology changed the night.
The earliest beds were not bed frames. They were prepared sleeping places. People used grasses, leaves, animal skins, mats, straw, or raised dry areas to get away from bare ground.
That sounds simple enough, but it really did matter. It was critical. A prepared sleeping surface helped protect people from cold earth, dampness, insects, sharp stones, and discomfort. It also showed planning. People were not just lying down just anywhere they wanted to, anywhere they could. They were actually managing their sleeping environment with care and the materials around them.
Yes. You see, sleep is a kind of a vulnerable state. A sleeping person cannot watch for animals, enemies, fire, or weather. So, where people slept was part of survival.
Some archaeological evidence suggests that very early humans arranged plant bedding and may have used ash to help produce insects. This tells us sleep was not just a biological need, it was also a practical problem people had to solve.
I understand, Dr. Deneen, that history goes back 200,000 years.
You're quite correct, Dr. Weaver, it does.
So the first beds were not about just luxury. No, it was about much more than that. They were about warmth, dryness, safety, and pest control.
Yes, sir.
Now, as people settled into villages, farms, and towns, most ordinary people still didn't sleep in anything like the modern bed that we know. No, many of them slept on mats, straw filled sacks, simple pallets, benches, or bedding that was placed directly on the floor.
Doesn't sound very nice to me.
Doesn't sound very comfortable.
A straw mattress, sometimes called a straw tick, could be made by stuffing straw into a cloth cover. It was basic, but it provided insulation and cushioning.
Yeah, it also needed maintenance. Straw could hold dust, moisture, fleas, lice, and bed bugs. Bedding had to be aired out, beaten, cleaned, replaced, or restuffed.
And class made a big difference, a major difference. Poorer households might use straw, chaff, rushes, leaves, or old cloth. Wealthier households might have wool, feathers, down, better blankets, and wooden bed frames.
You know what surprised me, Chandler? A good bed could be one of the most valuable items in a home. Beds and bedding often appear in wills and household inventories because they represented real money.
Yes, and that is kind of easy to overlook today. We tend to think of a bed as ordinary furniture, but historically, a high quality bed reflected wealth, labor, and status.
Now, in some ancient civilizations, wealthy people used beds that look more recognizable to us. In ancient Egypt, for example, elite households had raised wooden beds. Some used footboards and headrests instead of soft pillows.
And the Egyptian headrest is a good reminder that comfort is cultural. To a modern person, a hard neck support might seem uncomfortable, but it could keep the head raised, allow air circulation, protect hairstyles, and help keep the insects away.
Mm-hmm. That is correct. We should not assume that our version of comfort is universal. A soft pillow, thick mattress, and climate controlled bedroom are kind of modern expectations.
Very modern, Dr. Weaver. Raised beds also help separate sleepers from the floor, where there could be dampness, insects, dirt, and all kinds of animals. Now, in some societies, being higher off the floor also signaled status.
So even ancient beds show two things at once: practical design and social inequality. Some people slept on carefully made furniture, and others slept on mats or simple floor bedding.
Yes, that is right. One of the biggest differences between the past and present is privacy. Many people in the past did not sleep alone in a private bedroom. If you want a great reference to that, think of the Canterbury Tales.
Yeah, there's one of those stories. There's six people in the same bedroom.
Right.
Yeah, and I've heard that referenced in multiple Canterbury Tales. 'Cause so families often shared rooms. Children slept near adults. Servants might sleep near their employers. Travelers and inns even sometimes shared beds with strangers. In poorer homes, one room could serve as multiple rooms, like the kitchen, the workshop, the living room, the storage space, and the bedroom all at the same time.
The private bedroom became more common as housing changed, wealth increased, and ideas about privacy developed. For much of history, a separate bedroom for each person would have seemed very unrealistic.
And this is where bunk beds fit into the story. They're much more modern than straw mats or rope beds, but they do solve an old problem: how to fit more sleepers into a limited space. Shifts, military barracks, dormitories, camps, and children's rooms all use the same basic idea: stack this sleeping space vertically. And I remember those from summer camps, and I'm sure you do too, don't you, Dr. Deneen and
I
Dr.
do.
Weaver?
Yes. Uh-huh. That makes bunk beds part of the long history of practical sleeping arrangements. They are not about luxury, they are about space, efficiency, and group living.
Among the wealthy, the bedchamber could also be semi public. Important people sometimes received visitors near the bed or even from the bed. Winston Churchill dictated his correspondence in bed. A grand bed could show rank and authority.
Dr. Deneen, that is very different from the modern idea that the bedroom is one of the most private spaces in the home. Historically, sleep could be social, crowded, practical, or even connected to status display.
You're right, Chandler. Rope beds are another important stage in bed history. A rope bed used a wooden frame with ropes woven across it to support the mattress.
Instead of a modern box spring, the rope lattice held up the bedding. But ropes sagged over time, so they had to be tightened. And some households used a bed key or a bed wrench to complete that job.
Yes, indeed. That tells us something practical. Comfort depended on upkeep. A bed had to be tightened, cleaned, repaired, and restuffed.
People often connect rope beds with the phrase sleep tight, claiming it came from tightening the ropes. But that origin is debated. The phrase may have simply meant sleeping soundly or securely.
That's right, Dr. Deneen. And the careful version is this: rope beds were real, and tightening them was real. But the phrase explanation is not settled yet.
No, it's not. Rope beds showed that the bed was a technology. It used wood, rope, cloth, straw, wool, or feathers to solve a daily problem: how to support the body above the floor. Now let's turn our attention to the four-poster bed.
A four-poster bed is four upright posts, often supporting a canopy or a tester above the bed. Curtains could hang from the frame and close around the sleeper.
Today, those curtains may look decorative, but they served real purposes. Older buildings were drafty. Fires did not heat every room evenly. Bed curtains trapped warmth and created a smaller, protective space inside a colder room.
Almost a room inside a room, huh?
Yeah,
They also provided privacy in crowded households. If servants, children, guests, or other family members were nearby, curtains gave some separation.
the four-poster bed also showed wealth, too. The carved wood, fabric, curtains, and the size could make the bed one of the most impressive objects in the household.
Some large beds even became famous. The Great Bed of Ware in England, built around the late 16th century, was enormous and became a public curiosity people paid to look at.
Yeah. So the four-poster bed had combined function and display: warmth, privacy, comfort, and social status.
And modern people may underestimate how difficult nighttime could be before electric light. Streets were darker, houses were dimmer. Moving around after dark could be very risky. Fire had to be watched. Illness, thieves, animals, and weather all shaped the way people experienced the night.
And the bed itself was not always clean. Bedbugs, fleas, lice, and other pests were common problems. Straw and cloth could hold insects and moisture.
Households tried to manage this problem by airing the bedding, replacing straw, using sunlight, washing linens when possible, and keeping sleeping areas dry.
But resources mattered here. A poor family might know what needs to be done, but they might lack the money and the water and the soap, the space, or the spare bedding to do it properly and do it well.
Yeah, that is why we should avoid romanticizing older sleep. It could be cold, crowded, smoky, noisy, insect filled, and pretty uncomfortable.
You're quite right, Dr. Weaver. At the same time, we need to remember that people were not helpless. They adapted with curtains, raised beds, mats, shared warmth, household routines, and whatever materials they had. Now, one of the things that really interested me, one of the most interesting parts of sleep history, is what's called segmented sleep. Historian A. Roger Eckertsch argued that in parts of pre-industrial Europe and elsewhere, people often referred to a first sleep and a second sleep.
That means some people did not expect one uninterrupted block of sleep. They might go to bed after dark, sleep for several hours, wake for a period during the night, and then return to sleep until morning.
And that waking period could be used for prayer, quiet conversation, tending the fire, checking on the animals, just thinking, writing, or small household tasks. In some settings, waking in the middle of the night may not have been treated as a problem.
We shouldn't overstate it. The evidence varies by place, class, season, and culture. Not everyone slept this way every night.
But it does challenge a modern assumption. Today, many people wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and immediately worry that something is wrong.
And history reminds us that sleep expectations are cultural. The single smooth block of sleep is not the only pattern humans have known.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, artificial light changed the night. Candles and oil lamps extended the day for people who could afford them. Gas lighting changed city life. Electric lighting changed homes, factories, streets, and schedules.
Before widespread artificial light, darkness had more authority. People adjusted more directly to sunrise, sunset, the seasons, and household needs.
Electric light allowed people to separate activity from daylight. People could work later, read later, socialize later, travel more safely at night, and eventually watch television or use screens long after sunset.
And that made nighttime more useful, but at the same time, it made sleep easier to delay. Modern people can ignore darkness in a way that most earlier people could not.
Industrial schedules also mattered. Factories, schools, trains, offices, and clocks pushed sleep toward more standardized routines.
Yeah, modern sleep became organized around work, productivity, and clock time.
The modern mattress is a product of industry. Metal springs, standardized bed sizes, mass produced textiles, cotton sheets, foam, and later memory foam also all changed what people expected from a bed.
A modern mattress is not just a cushion. It is part of a system involving factories, shipping, advertising, medical claims, consumer expectations, and household design.
Let's talk about waterbeds. Waterbeds are a good example of a modern sleep experiment. They became especially popular in the 1970s and 1980s. They promised a different kind of comfort, but they were heavy, hard to move, sometimes leaked, and were not always practical. Over time, they became more of a niche product than just a standard household bed.
But I got to say here that I really, really loved my waterbed.
I can see why you would, Dr. Weaver.
Yeah, very comfortable stuff.
That shows how bed history didn't end with the spring mattress. People kept trying to redesign sleep. Softer beds, firmer beds, adjustable beds, foam beds, water beds, as we said, and beds marketed for health or better rest.
Advertising also changed expectations. Companies sold not just beds, but better sleep, better health, better marriage, better childhood, and better productivity.
Modern sleep became more comfortable in many ways, but also more pressured. We now track sleep, compare mattresses, use blackout curtains, worry about blue light, and treat sleep as something to optimize. Now, the history of beds is really the history of ordinary life. Beds show how people handled cold, insects, darkness, limited space, family life, and class. Now, that's all for this episode of Things You Don't Know. Thanks for listening, guys.
Please leave a like and a comment. We'll see you next time. Lots of wonderful things coming up here.
Yes, and until then, rest well. Whatever kind of bed history has given to you.